So Vivek Ramaswamy competing with Joe Biden pretty strongly. Real Clear polling average has him at 7.2% up against Donald Trump's 56.6%. And joining us now from Columbus, Ohio, is the aforementioned Vivek Ramaswamy. First of all, am I saying Vivek? Is that how you say it?
It's pretty close. It's Vivek, like cake.
Vivek. Okay.
Yeah, you got
it. So I asked my staff 85 times to give me a pronouncer, and I got 85 different pronouncers. But I'll try to remember that.
The fact is, that's what most of the media gets, about 100 different pronouncers, so your staff has narrowed it down pretty well. But it's Vivek.
You're a Harvard guy. Were you in the business school up there?
I was in undergrad there, and then I went to law school after that at Yale.
At Yale. Okay, so I'm going to hold both of those things against you, if you don't mind.
That's fair.
Actually going to be at Harvard this weekend. I have some business up there with them. All right, I got to ask you some questions about the world in which we live. And you know me, straight talk. We don't want any political nonsense here. We just want your opinion and why you believe what you believe. So Putin, if you're elected president, you're going to have to deal with him. What kind of guy, how would you describe Putin to somebody who doesn't know him?
Ruthless and acts in his own self-interest. And so, Bill, my point is that Putin doesn't trust us now, and we don't trust him. But we can trust him to follow his self-interest, and he can trust us to follow ours. So I'm going to end the war in Ukraine, and I'll do it with a simple deal that allows Ukraine to come out with its sovereignty intact, freeze the current lines of control, make a hard commitment that NATO won't admit Ukraine to NATO, which is something Putin's been asking for a long time. But in return, I'm going to require that he exit his military alliance with Xi Jinping, which is the single greatest threat that we face today, is the Russia-China military alliance.
Okay.
And so
let me stop you. Let me stop you. I don't believe he will do that. All right.
I
don't believe he. Okay. So you are basing your hope on what specifically? I don't believe that Putin's going to blow his alliance with Xi up. You believe the opposite. Convince me, but convince me with some facts.
Okay, facts are good. And the way first I'll give you an analogy to think about it, and then I'll give you the facts of the present. The analogy was everyone said the same thing about Richard Nixon and Mao Zedong in 1972. Did Nixon trust Mao? Did the United States trust Mao? No, we did not. Was Mao a good person? No, he's not. But that was irrelevant because the point was, how do we pull him out of the USSR? And the reason why is Mao had an ego. He didn't like being Xi Jinping. He didn't like being Brezhnev's little brother back in the USSR era. And so Nixon did a deal with Mao that pulled them out of Russia's, or that back then the USSR, stranglehold. I see Putin as the new Mao. So on the face, it's a hunky-dory relationship, right? They have the strategic no-limits partnership. But look closely. Now you got some facts you asked for, Bill. Well, one of them is every time Putin now meets with Xi Jinping, like at the 2022 summit, he sends weapons to Vietnam and to India. Those are two countries that border China. That irritates Xi Jinping a lot. But Putin does not like being Xi Jinping's little brother in that relationship.
But you're going to have to do something other. Look, Nixon.
I'm going to give you one more fact. I'm going to give you one more fact.
Well, all right, but let me set it up. Nixon got through to Mao for economic reasons. China was starving. Okay.
Yes.
And that's how they got that deal done. Right now, you're not giving me any, reason how Putin will benefit from your deal. So Putin's he's going to look weak, pulling his troops out.
We will reopen economic relations with Russia is a key part of this.
He's selling oil all over the place. He doesn't need
it. Well, the fact of the matter is he's not. I mean, Russia's economy has gone down since you took out the Nord Stream 1 and 2. And if you open economic relations with the U.S., that's more promising for him than being stuck in bed with Xi Jinping.
Look, he didn't have to. He knew before he invaded.
It's the West as we know it.
He knew before he invaded Ukraine that was going to happen. He doesn't care.
Well, here's what he asked for before he invaded Ukraine, though, Bill. He said he wanted a hard commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO. That's a big deal to Russia, NATO admitting Ukraine.
But we're going to sell out Ukraine. I don't particularly think
we're not going to sell out Ukraine.
Well, you're telling them. Sure you are. You're selling them out because
Ukraine comes out with its. I'll respectfully disagree with you here, Bill. Ukraine, on my deal, will come out with its sovereignty intact. I don't think Ukraine
No,
is
it
going to be
won't.
on a trajectory
It
to come out with
loses
its sovereignty
20%
intact.
of its territory.
The
It loses-
Russian-speaking territories that have gone ping-pong for over a course of centuries.
It's within
yes,
the
we freeze the current
Ukrainian
lines of
border.
control.
Ukraine
But it gets-
loses 20% of their territory.
Ukraine ends up being a sovereign nation at the end of it, but our job isn't to look after Ukraine. Our job is to look after the United States.
I got that.
And
But
so I think
Ukraine's
it's a
not
good
gonna
enough deal for Ukraine.
Zelensky is never going to sign off on this.
Zelensky doesn't, I mean, with due respect, Bill, Zelensky's bills are being paid by the United States.
Okay,
the
but
government
then
employees
Putin
of the Ukraine government are being paid by our taxpayers.
Okay.
So I
We
think
got
that we
the- we
have
got
a
the
bit of a
vision.
say in what happens there.
We have a gentleman's disagreement. I don't think Putin would make the deal, and I know Zelensky
Let me just say
would.
one more fact, though. You asked for a fact, Bill. Let me just leave you with one more.
Go ahead.
China is trying to build a railroad in northeast China to reach the ocean, and northeast China is impoverished because of it, but it runs through Russia. Putin won't even let Xi Jinping do that right now either. So there are cracks in that armor of that relationship. I think now is our moment to actually get this right during this window, telling Putin, we'll reopen economic relations with the West. We'll give you what you asked for before you invaded Ukraine, which is a hard commitment, that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO, which,
That's a
by the
tough
way,
one.
is what James Baker told Gorbachev and promised him in 1990. We went back on our word with NATO's expansion. Give them that, then we pull Putin out of the relationship with Xi Jinping. That's how we avoid World War III. And by the way, that's also how you deter Xi Jinping from going after Taiwan.
Okay.
Because China's bet is with Russia's in their camp, the U.S. won't want to mess around with them.
All
but if
I'm
Russia's
saying
not in
is
China's camp, we're in a better
It's an
situation.
You have an interesting wish list, but even if I were your Secretary of State, I don't think I could pull that deal off. And I have a lot of confidence in my ability. All right, let's go back into the USA. So we all know the Department of Justice and the FBI is corrupt. You agree
Yes.
with that, right?
Wholeheartedly.
Okay. So I think any clear-thinking person understands the corruption that is seeped
Yes.
into the Department of Justice and the world's most powerful investigative agency, the FBI. Are you going to defund the Department of Justice? How? I know you'll fire Merrick Garland, you'll bring in your own guy. I understand that. But it's the bureaucrats within,
Yes.
not the unelected people that have really,
That's right.
really corrupted the agencies. How are you going to deal with that?
So you're correct about that. Let's start with the FBI, Bill. I will shut down the FBI. It's not just about replacing Christopher Wray. We have to shut the entire institution down because its culture is part of what actually creates that rot. People say, is this practical? The answer is yes, it is. There's 35,000 employees at the FBI. 15,000 of them are agents on the front lines. We will reorganize them to the U.S. Marshals, which isn't corrupted in the same way, which is on the front lines of the child trafficking problem in this country. We'll put them at the DEA, fighting the fentanyl epidemic, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network at the U.S. Treasury, with actual expertise in white-collar crime. But the 20,000 bureaucrats that report into the J. Edgar Hoover building of the FBI, they're going to be fired and have to find honest work in the private sector. That's how we actually drive that change, where other Republicans will say, hey, I'll fire Christopher Wray. You're missing the point. You had James Comey before. You'll have James Comey 2.0 afterwards. You have to shut down the bureaucracy itself when the bureaucracy itself is as
All right,
rotten
but
as
it's
it's
a
become.
2
And your
to
comments
3 year
suggest to me you
rebuild.
understand that.
I get it, but it's a 2 to 3 year rebuild. Look,
It's not a
our
rebuild.
main-
It's a reorg.
all
Actually,
right,
we're
whatever.
moving people
It's
to
2
the
to 3
existing.
years before
I think
you
it's a
can
year.
get all of that in motion.
I think it's 1 year. It's 1 year. We'll be done
All
by
right.
the end of 2025.
I don't think everybody has your kind of energy. Mexico is a threat to the United States because the cartels pretty much run the country. How would you deal with Mexico to stop the narcotics and the human trafficking? Specifically.
Yes. So one thing we got to observe, it's an opportunity, is there's a 2024 election in Mexico. AMLO, that's the current president of Mexico, Obrador, he's been a disaster. He has embraced what's called the hugs, not bullets policy towards the cartels. And I believe that much of the Mexican government is captured by the cartels. But there's an opportunity. Claudia Sheinbaum is likely the person who's going to win that election. But whoever it is, let's say it's Claudia. I'm going to have a call with Claudia early in 2025, likely in February 2025, and have a serious, straight conversation. No mincing words, straight talk here. For a tiny fraction, and I mean tiny, we've done the math on this, we're talking single-digit percentages potentially, of what we will have spent in Ukraine by that point in time, for that tiny fraction, we will help Mexico regain its sovereignty from the Mexican drug cartels, because that's a problem for Americans here in the U.S.
You bet.
And we're going to help them solve that problem. But if she doesn't want to do it, we're going to solve the problem one way or another. I will use our own military.
Would you designate the cartels as terror groups? And you
Yes.
need to read my book,
That's a
Killing
hard
the
yes.
Killers, by the way, because then you could go and do it. All right, final question
And
about
you could also use our own military as an easier first step, Bill. Just put the military on our own southern border.
absolutely.
The wall was not enough.
Absolutely.
Because there's tunnels underneath the wall. Use our own military at the southern border.
But that still doesn't solve the cartel Mexico problem.
No, that's
You
the
gotta-
first step.
gotta
and
take
then we'll
those
help
guys
Mexico do
out.
it. And if not, we will get in there and get the job done
I like
ourselves.
it.
That's the answer.
So you're not going to win a Republican nomination. You're just not
Yes, I
gonna
am,
happen.
actually.
Okay.
Yes, I am, Bill. That's why
I'm
I'm in
not
this
gonna-
race. But
I'm
everyone
not
said
gonna
that about
make
Trump
you
in
a-
2015.
I'll be
So-
happy to
so I don't
make you a
fault
charitable bet, but it wouldn't be fair. I don't think you're going to win the primary.
You're entitled to your opinion.
Of course.
but I think that we're gonna be
and I'm
successful
glad
in this.
you feel that you are going to win, because that shows self-confidence and motivation. I don't, not disparaging you at all. I'm a realist. But you are building a profile. That's what you're doing. If you look at throughout history, it takes a while to get where you want to go. Now, it's a different age with the internet now. You can get there faster, but it's going to take you a while. So say you don't succeed this time around. Now, Trump may appoint you. Trump likes you because you haven't badmouthed him. He may appoint you somewhere. I would if I were him. What job would you like?
Look, I'm not a plan B kind of guy.
You're
Bill, I didn't
not?
get to where I am in life, and I'm not going to lead this country by being a plan B kind of person. Here's what I will say is I would like to appoint Trump as my most important mentor and advisor while I'm in the White
All
House.
right. He's not
I think
going to
the
do
reason
it, but
the
all
reason
right.
he and I have respect for each other is not because one of us is or isn't bashing each other. We've known each other since I wrote my first book. And I think that it's going to take outsiders to change this broken federal bureaucracy. I'm the outsider in this race. The difference with me, Bill, is I've got fresh legs. I'm 38 years old. I'm not yet tired and jaded and cynical. And I think it takes someone whose best days are still yet ahead in life to see a country whose best days are still ahead of itself.
All right.
And that's why I'm in this race. And I think we're on our way up. And when I'm elected, and I do expect to be the next president, I will take Trump as my most important advisor and mentor, because I don't want to start from scratch. I want to pick up where he left off, but take that America First agenda to the next level. Militarize the southern border, shut down the administrative state, 75% layoff of federal employees in that bureaucratic headcount. That's the kind of change we're going to need to see. But I want to pick up with the great beginning that he gave us. But I think I'm going to unite this country in the process in a way that nobody else can. And I
Okay.
think that's why it's got to be me.
Very good interview. You were pretty straightforward. A little naive, in my opinion, but I'm one of those guys who are old and cranky. You know, I'm not like you. I
like talking to you, Bill. It's good because it's
Well,
good for us to test each other. We make
we'll
each other
keep in
stronger that way.
touch. You know, certainly you're welcome anytime you got something on your mind. We'll certainly keep in touch, and we wish you the best. And you're a patriot for trying to improve your country. Vivek, did I get it? Vivek?
You got it. And,
All right.
and Bill, I'll say the same right back at you. You're a patriot. Keep up the good work, and we're going to save this country together, each of us
All
doing
right.
our part.
Thanks very much for happening.